So, hello, today Podcast Nation. I am in the Weirman Media Studios and Two Brothers TV, and I'm thinking of you. And I thought, what's something I could talk about that might be valuable? And it is why you need to have a podcast, not today, not tomorrow, but yesterday. You need to have started your podcast yesterday. So what better than throwing the party in high school, right? In high school, you were always the person, if you had the ability to throw a party, you had a little bit of leverage and leeway. Well, as adults and business owners or entrepreneurs, ultimately, if you're throwing the party, you have a little bit of leverage. So what better to throw a party for business-minded folks or entrepreneurs or people that are trying to pursue their passion for profit, starting a podcast around that passion, that idea, or that concept. In my opinion, leadership branding is the most fluid, flexible, and most modern day version of business, and it's what everyone, in my opinion, should be doing, is being a leadership brand. You should lean into everything that makes you different, everything that might be your shortcoming or defect or something you might find as an insecurity, and make it your strength. Lean into it. And now you can use this content, this podcast, to invite your target audience. You can invite B2B, B2C, you can do all that. You can do any of it. And then also at the same time, you can now streamline your content via the S effect, via a speedy, simple, scientific, spiritual, systematic strategy by recording it like I am right now. I have my audio hooked up. We record this content for podcast. Boom, the audio. The visual for video. Now I dice this up. If you follow me, you see that I create my content from this. I dice up 1-minute clips, and I dice up 3 to 9 minute clips for IGTV. And now I have the video log and I have the audio for the podcast, and I'm releasing that, and it's streamlining and making it very speedy, fast, scientific, simple, streamlined, spiritual, because I'm bringing you value freely. It's spiritual in the regard that I'm bringing value to you on the front end freely. And it's systematic, and it's a systematic strategy. It's a strategy. So once again, it's the S effect. Strategy that is systematic, spiritual, streamlined, scientific, simple, and speedy. It is the S effect. It's what Weirman Media uses. So that's why you, if you launch your podcast tomorrow, can instantly start doing this. And we offer podcast production, and you can even use our space, and we'll launch your podcast art. We'll help design the podcast art. We'll come up with your show concept. We'll come up with a strategy for who you're targeting, what you want to share, what value you want to share with the world, and then start having you create that content and start streamlining your process for content creation simply by starting a podcast and generating leverage, using the S effect, using Weirman Media, and using Weirman X, which is the model of using this concept to create content. And it's so simple. So what is your podcast going to be? Why aren't you speaking? Why aren't you sharing your value? And why, especially you have to ask why, if you're in business, you're not bringing more value to your consumer on the front end. If you're in business, and you're whatever company, if you're Nike, Bent Paddle, if you're Duluth Trading, Duluth Pack, whatever company you are, Grandma's Bar, whatever company you are right now, you need to ask yourself, why aren't you launching a podcast? You could then be starting to speak to your audience. You could be doing all the things that are essential to business. Developing community, bringing value freely on the front end of your funnel, bringing your consumer intellectual value and insight into your brand, service, solution, or business, whatever you're doing. So you're bringing community development forward. You're bringing your value to your consumer on the front end. You're pushing everything forward that is essential, building loyalty and trust via healthy, consistent communication and healthy, consistent interactions on a daily basis, building up that attention, which is the currency of business. And in order to do so, you have to have healthy, consistent dialogue and communication. And you need to do it at the intersection of culture and attention, which just so happens to be, in 2020, a podcast, social media networks, online platforms, etc., etc. So to do this, podcasting is the number one way. And you can start it with very little money. Reach out to us at Weirman Media if you would like to launch your podcast. If you're located in Duluth, you're just blessed. We would offer you a special deal. You can come in and start launching your show, and you can start streamlining your content creation. Next thing you know, you're spending 1 hour a week in the studio making a podcast. Now you have content created for the rest of the week, because you spent 1 hour recording a podcast, you spent 1 hour talking to your audience, and now you can use that to talk to your audience the rest of the week in little 1-minute clips. A 60-minute episode can be 60-minute, one-minute clips. It can be 30-minute, it can be two It can be 32-minute clips. It can be whatever. You can cut it up into hundreds of pieces of content and contextualize it. So ultimately, we need to start our podcasting now. You can start your podcast tomorrow, but you should have started it yesterday. So that's why it's essential to start podcasting, especially if you're in business, because you can start implementing this strategy for a very cost-effective price and a very low expense. And it's going to lower your CPM as a business owner. It's going to lower your cost per 1,000 impressions. You're going to be able to streamline your content creation process, make it much more scientific, speedy, spiritual, because you're going to be giving more freely to your audience. You're going to be giving them insight. You're going to be sharing dialogue consistently and building healthy relationships via that dialogue. So if you're in business and you're not having healthy, consistent dialogue, healthy, consistent communication, healthy, consistent interactions, at the intersection of culture and attention, which just so happens to be podcast and social media platforms and online platforms, you are not maximizing your ability to develop loyalty and brand awareness and community development, etc., etc. Those are all essential to business. So ultimately, let's launch your podcast. No matter what industry you're in, you can start sharing your story at scale and sharing it with everyone in a creative, modern-day fashion at the intersection of culture and attention via podcasting, which then can be diced up and contextualized for other platforms, used as a video log and as a blog. Why aren't you launching your podcast? Let me know why you're not launching your podcast.